Welcome to Anyela's Vineyards. My name is Jim Nosek, and my wife Patty and I own Anyela's. We're the only winery on the Skaneateles Lake at this point, and we're actually the only estate winery in Onondaga County. Anyela's focuses on the grapes that can grow best. We have certain winemaking practices that we think accentuate the grapes and the region as well. We grow Riesling, which is a staple for the Finger Lakes area, Pinot Gris. We have Chardonnay, and we have some Vidal Blanc. With regard to reds, we have Pinot Noir here, as well as Cab Franc. I also have vineyards in Western New York where we raise some more reds, Cab Sauv, Merlot, Shiraz, and a grape called Noiret. We wanted to develop a program that would tie our customers closer during this time of challenge. We realized that as the season develops here, one of our main objectives was to create an environment for people to come and enjoy themselves. At this point, people aren't coming and enjoy themselves, they're protecting themselves, and we're helping our employees protect themselves, and that's the way it should be at this time. However, we wanted to go ahead and create an experience for you that would bring you back to what we are at this point. Many of you in the wine club have experienced a special tasting during the wine pickup times. Certainly we miss all the customers that come in during this time of year as we start to have our season evolve. So what I'd like to do is to really go through this perhaps new normality that we're going to be challenged with and create a virtual tasting that would allow you to understand a little bit about wine and also our wine specifically as we walk through a red and a white tasting for your enjoyment. What we're going to do is, first of all, define some things and define some of our parameters. We want to make sure that we're tasting, not drinking. First of all, I want to introduce the wine. Wine is a scientific entity. It's involving biology, it's involving chemistry, it's involving various types of physiology associated with the vines as well as the microbes that actually make the wine during the fermentation process. Wine is about a sensory synopsis, if you will, of putting your senses together to evaluate this process. And that's a very important thing. We can go ahead and use science to predict what type of wine we're going to be engaged in and making and thinking that you're going to enjoy. Oftentimes that falls short, and what is really important is you really developing an art. And wine tasting is an art to try to characterize the type of wine you enjoy and how we can go ahead and make that a better experience. There's a process that has been very well known, and it's called the 5 S's that we're going to pursue. This process involves utilizing all of your senses. And the first process and the first sense that you're going to use is going to be sight. Then you're going to go ahead and swirl the wine, smell the wine, or sniff the wine, if you will. Then the tasting aspect, or we're going to call that the sip component, and finally the savoring component. We start out typically by tasting whites and then reds, then with dry wines, and then we progress to sweet wines, for example, particularly in the white categories. And then finally we do lighter intensity wines in the red area, particularly into more heavier intensive wines. That allows your palate and your taste buds to get used to increasing intensities rather than being camouflaged with entities that will interfere with the next wine that you'll taste. Some of the tools that we use are our glass. The glass is very important. If we look at the anatomy of a glass, we're looking at 4 different regions: the rim, the bowl, the stem, and the base. And what we want to do is really accentuate the wine. When we're doing a pour of wine for a tasting, we only want about an ounce. We really don't want to overindulge in a glass of wine where there's a lot of things we want to experience in that wine. And an ounce is more than enough for us to do that with. There's a lot of traditions, there's a lot of cultural aspects associated with wine glasses. But from my standpoint, and what we're trying to do here from a tasting perspective, is really to evaluate wine and taste wine. In order to do that, I like a larger type bowl, and I like the rim to be relatively narrow so that we can capture the essence of the aromas as the aromas are being evaporated and volatilized into the environment of the glass. What we're going to do is go through these wines. First of all, I'm going to go through some white wines that really are different in their character with regard to how they're processed, how they're manufactured, and some of the different stylistic components that are associated with these wines.